Did you know that Silverstone was an airfield during the World War II? And now these days Silverstone is known as the home of the British Grand Prix, with more than 70 years of history. So how this can be possible, when it happened, and why? Well, first we need to know where Silverstone is in England, and you can see here is close to Northamptonshire Village and the Buckinghamshire, as well as on the side of the Royal Air Force Bombers Station, the RAF Silverstone, which was in operation during the Second World War II in 1943 and 1946. If you pay attention, next time you are in Silverstone, you can see the airfield tracks, the runways still in Silverstone. Just let me know in the comments if you have seen them or if you know anything about this. The Royal Air Force was founded after the First World War on 1st April 1918. It was the first independent air force in the world, and it has a significant role here in the British military history. The airfield was designed to use it for bombers and to use as transportation as well. It has 3 runways with 60 degrees of each other, and it was designed in August 1942. The airfield was complete before the Class A standards arrived. Class A is named because when the airplanes was taking pictures of the airfield, the runways make a shape of a letter A. With the end of the Second World War and the motorsport resurgence, too many airfields was abandoned and was using it as a racetrack, like Silverstone, Goodwood, Thruxton, and Castlecombe. Silverstone was used the first time as a racetrack in 1947. It was used by a group of friends, 12 drivers, and they raced over 2 miles. How this could happen? Well, it was a guy living near to the airfield, and he was aware that the airfield was abandoned. His name was Maurice, and during the race he ran over the ship and he lost his car as well. After this incident, the informal races, they called it Mutton Grand Prix. In 1948, the Royal Automotive Club set in mind to run the first Grand Prix. The chairmanship, Wilfred Andrews, he has in mind to set the British Grand Prix on the streets, but it was impossible to close the highways, the roads, or anything like that, as it was in Isle of Man. In August of 1948, a list was arranged. Wilfred Andrews take action. He employed James Brown to design a race circuit just in 2 months. So from August to October, he has to plan it to build a new circuit for the British Grand Prix. So James Brown take action, and then on September, the 30th of September, the British Grand Prix starts, and it was the race on 2nd of October of the 1948. It was the first British Grand Prix in a race circuit in Silverstone. Just bear with me here, because it wasn't the first British Grand Prix in England. The first British Grand Prix was in 1926 and 1927, and the race was in Brooklands Circuit. So in 1948 was the first British Grand Prix in Silverstone, and it was with 25 drivers, an estimate of 100,000 spectators, and the race was 239 miles length, and the average speed was 72 miles per hour. And then the second Grand Prix was on May 1949, and then it was officially designated as the British Grand Prix. It was using the full perimeter of the airfield as well as the runways in 2 directions with 3 miles length, 100 laps, making it the longest post-war Grand Prix. As well as in 1949, Daily Express sponsored the international trophy, and it was run on 20th of August, 2 hits and 1 final. In the 1950 was the first World Championship Grand Prix, and it was named as European Grand Prix. It was the first race newly created for World Championship drivers. It was the only time and the first time the reigning monarchy came into a race. It was the King George VI and the Queen Elizabeth. Silverstone witnessed as well the first time the Alfa Romeos 150 Alfetas participating in England, and these cars take the first 3 places of the race. Then in 1951, the British Racing Drivers Club took over Silverstone. At the time in Silverstone, the average speed was 96.11 miles per hour. But in 1953, Farina in his Ferrari Type of 500, he breaks record over the 100 miles per hour. at 100.16 miles per hour. From 1955, the Grand Prix was alternated from L3 and Silverstone until 1964, when Branchage came to be as an alternative racetrack, and it was running from 1964 until 1986, which runs 12 Grand Prix, but more about Branchage in the next episode. In 1961, by the governing safety grounds, they introduced the 1.5 liters cars, and this gave birth the Intercontinental Formula. And then in 1966, the 3 liters came again, the return of the power, which didn't take part in Silverstone until 1967. In 1973, we witnessed the biggest accidents in British motor racing circuits when Jody lost control of his car, spinning into the pit wall. But Silverstone hasn't hosted just the British Grand Prix. It was held in 1976, the Endurance Racing 6 Hours, and as well in 1977 it was the MotoGP. But before continuing with Silverstone, let's see what happened with the MotoGP. The MotoGP was held before in the Isles of Man TT, and it was the most prestigious and the most dangerous race of motorcycling. It was run from 1949 and 1972. The circuit was 37 miles long, and then in 1972 the multiple champion Giacomo, he won't compete in the Isle of Man TT because it was too dangerous, and after this other riders follow him as well with the decision. It was until 1976, after the last season, when the Isle of Man TT was scratched for the FIM calendar. It started in 1977 at Silverstone until 1987, when it moved to Donington Park circuit, but it was until 2010 that we know that the MotoGP came back to Silverstone. The era of the turbo was in the 80s, and it was a new record of 150 miles per hour in Silverstone. And for safety reasons and for other measurements, in the 90s, the Silverstone circuit have to be refurbished completely, including a new stadium and other bends. Even though of these changes of new bends and everything, the circuit is still known as the fastest circuits of Formula 1. In 2004, it was a really scary moment. It's been like 2 scary moments of the Silverstone, of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, because on 30 September 2004, the president, Jackie Stewart, called that it won't be added into the calendar for 2005, the British Grand Prix. So that means it could be not happen in 2005. So then in December that year, in 2004, it was an agreement with the Formula 1 rights holder, Bernice Ecclestone. The British Grand Prix, it will be hosted in Silverstone until 2009, and then it will move to Donington Park. This couldn't be happen because Donington Park at the time, it was a struggle with finances. They renew a new agreement. They do 17 years of a new agreement. But then in 2019, because of the cost, the president of the British Racing Driver Club called, and he wants to break the contract before the time. But then the Liberty Media take action and make a negotiation, making a new agreement for more 5 years. That means the contract will finish the next year at the end of the 2024. But who knows? I believe that Silverstone is going to still be the home of the British Grand Prix. Moving backwards, in 2020, with closed doors because of COVID, it was held 2 Formula 1 championships, and one of them was for the 70th anniversary of the World Championship. The same year, in December, the pit straight was named after Lewis Hamilton because of his achievement into the sport. In 2023, the race started on the Hamilton Straight, and this year has brought 480,000 spectators, Formula fans, into Silverstone. It's been the biggest numbers of spectators Silverstone has hosted. The other achievement here in Silverstone is being like Norris and Hamilton finishing the podiums, 2nd and 3rd after Max Verstappen. So that means 2 British has been in the podium after 2021, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, when Norris and Hamilton were in the podium as well. And the other time when 2 British was on the podium was in 1999, and it was for David David Coulthard and Eddie Irvine. These are some of the highlights and history of Silverstone. I hope you like this video. Let me know in the comments below if you knew something about this, if you have something to add into it, if you knew the runways still existing at Silverstone, if you have seen them, if you noticed or you didn't know them. I was in Silverstone last year. To be honest, I didn't know about that. Now, next time I go to Silverstone, I will pay more attention to it. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if you're not, and see you guys in the next video. Peace!